WILDR folks, Alicia here. This week's video is a little different than normal. Over on my Instagram, which you should go follow me if you're not, I sent out a call for your questions as ski season approaches, and you sent me some amazing ones. So I'm gonna go through a few of them today, some of them personal, some of them about getting physically ready for ski season. So without further ado, let's jump into it. And if you love all things skiing, then you are gonna love this quiz that we put together about helping you find what your skiing superpower is. So click through the link in the description below to do that 5-minute quiz and figure out what your skiing superpower is. Okay, let's get into our first question. I have a huckleberry protein shake because it is primo huckleberry season here in Southern Alberta. And I'm gonna open up your questions. Okay, we've got fitness questions, we've got mental questions, we've got some personal questions. There's lots of good stuff in here. I'm gonna start with a question that I get a lot, which is what can you do, hold on. What do you do to protect your knees? Which is what was asked, and I think they mean in relation to skiing. Now, I did a whole video on this, and I'm gonna link it here and in the description below. But the long and short of it is when you're skiing, your knees are more vulnerable than when you're not. The reason being, we are in a ski boot that is locked into a big long lever. And if you think about yanking on that lever sideways, the first vulnerable joint up that chain is going to be your knee. So if you think about it that way, the first thing we can do is have properly adjusted DIN settings on our binding. For finding that, you either know what you like and want, or you're gonna take those skis into a ski shop. A DIN setting just means how much lateral pressure your binding allows before it lets your boot come out. And of course, we don't want your ski releasing if you're not falling, because that'll cause you to fall. But if you take a crash, we want those skis to release so that you don't have that big long lever attached to the end of your leg. So that's number one. Number two, there's been some studies that have shown a protective effect of doing lateral plyometrics, of building your quads, so the front of your leg, and your hamstrings, so the back of your thigh, building those up nice and strong, as well as making sure you have sufficient calf strength and musculature as well. So building up around the knee is gonna help protect it. I loved these next two questions. It was crazy because they came in side by side, and they both had to do with your mental approach to skiing. So the first one was, any tips for building your mental game to match your skill or fitness level? And the next question was, how do I get over the fear when I'm looking down at a slope that I know I can ski, but also I don't know that I can ski? I totally understand how that feels. I remember being a teenager and going free skiing with my dad, and there was this drop that I really wanted to try, but I was really afraid of. I didn't know if I could do it. And this guy cheered for me on the chairlift, and I was standing there. I waited so long before I actually went that he then came by on the chairlift again and cheered for me again. And at that point, I realized I've been here so long, so I just went and I did it, and it turns out it was such an easy drop, and it was well within my skill level. So I know exactly what it feels like to stare at a run below you, to wonder if you can do it, and to have that fear. And I also know the feeling of being able to ski something and having that adrenaline rush and that feeling of accomplishment from doing it. I've also fallen down a fair share of ski runs, so I also know what it's like to crash and to have that confidence take a hit. So the mental game is a huge part of it, but I think that's partially why we love skiing so much. You have to be mentally there. You have to be invested in that moment and not be thinking about everything else that's in your life. And so I think that's why one of the reasons that skiing is so wonderful and such a wonderful thing to do on the weekends. But I have a few things I wrote down because I wanted to give a full and thorough answer to both these questions. The first thing that I wrote was competence breeds confidence. And what I mean by that is, if we spend time working on our skiing skills and we build up some knowledge of what to do on those runs, then two things happen. First, we're better able to ski the steeper or harder terrain. And two, we have something to really mentally focus on in that moment if our fear is overtaking our ability to perform. So if you take time practicing drills that help you have your weight on your outside ski, help you keep your torso or heart facing down the hill, then those things are going to translate into you having confidence to try some new things and knowing what to focus on in those moments when your brain is taking over a little bit. The other thing I wanted to mention with this is if you're approaching a slope or a difficult situation, leaning back or being hesitant, that often is going to be riskier or less safe than if you're leaning into it and you're trying to actively move through that situation, if you know what I mean. If we're leaning into it, if we're mentally engaged in a positive way, we're more likely to have a positive outcome. That being said, you can step things up one thing at a time. The first run of the year, you don't have to go do something harder than you've ever done. You can build your confidence by going over the same features a few times and working on those technical skills that will translate to when you want to try something harder. And that's super important for staying safe on the hill. Oh, I also wrote pick your ski partner as well, because I know there's certain ski partners that I'm out with and I feel comfortable trying new things. And even if I'm going to fall, it's okay. And I also know that they're not going to push me into something that I don't feel comfortable doing. So pick your ski partners. Pick someone who isn't being led by ego, but they're looking at getting the same thing out of skiing that you are. Oh, this next question was fun. It was more of a personal one. For what percentage do you backcountry versus resort ski each year? And this is interesting because it has changed drastically for me, even over the course of the last few seasons. So if we go back a couple years, it was COVID times, and I was taking a break from ski coaching as well. And so I think I did every day of that winter, except for 1 or 2, in the backcountry. Ski touring up the hill, pulling your skins and skiing down. You get less laps in a day. You get more aerobic fitness gains because you're gaining that elevation yourself before you ski down. And you get less downhill skiing, obviously, per day that you go out. Last season, I did about 1 for 1. So I was helping coach 1 day at our local resort per week. I had this amazing group of 9 gals that was between the age of 6 and 9, and we had so much fun on the hill. I also had a female assistant coach, and it was just the best year I've ever had in terms of coaching. We had so much fun, we gained so many skills, and it was super rewarding for me. So I also did one night a week with the race crew, but that was more me setting a course and not really doing that much skiing. And then I would do backcountry skiing once a week, maybe twice a week, if I had friends and time to do it. So for me, for some years it goes 50-50, some years I'm 100% backcountry. This upcoming season will probably be reasonably similar to last year. I'm gonna be coaching 1 day a week and then hoping to get out on the backcountry skis a lot. Both are fun. I don't think I could pick a favorite. Oh, this next one was super fun. It said, what is different for fitness for skiers versus snowboarders? So there is a video that I filmed and made and did horrible, but it was actually maybe the video I'm most proud of making in the last year. I decided to try snowboarding and snowboard well enough to try and go in a snowboard race. And it was crazy for me because I don't actually remember learning how to ski. My parents taught me when I was just shy of 2 to get on skis for the first time. And so I do not remember being really scared on skis in a beginner environment. And so when I tried snowboarding, all of a sudden, all of my instincts were a little backwards. Everything that I needed to do to be safe on a snowboard was the opposite of what you had to do for skis. And it was super helpful for me in that now when I'm coaching skiers, I can remember what it feels like to be nervous on the hill or to not want to try a new drill. But at the same time, it gave me a look into what skills you need to be a great snowboarder and how that differed from skiing. And now there are some incredible fitness coaches that work just with snowboarders, and they're gonna have a much more in-depth understanding of what you need to be a good snowboarder. But I would say the main difference that I noticed from skiing to snowboarding is that snowboarding, it's so much easier to get one side dominant because you are positioned facing across the hill and everyone's gonna have their dominant lead foot. Even most people will set up their bindings differently. They'll have a different amount of forward turn left foot versus right foot. And so that's gonna change the way that your body feels at the end of the day. Also, when I was out snowboarding, I ate it and crashed way more than when I was skiing. So I was a lot more sore all over my body just from trying to learn how to snowboard. But yeah, the main thing I would say is it is easier to accidentally become one side dominant snowboarding versus skiing. And snowboarding, I found, as a beginner snowboarder versus what I can see as a coach, as a beginner skier, a lot more core stability required as a snowboard beginner than a ski beginner. I will link that video below if you want to go watch it, because it was very fun to make and I felt like I grew a lot as a person when I was making it. Oh, this next question was super awesome. Does cardio training help with ski fitness, or should I focus on strength? The stronger you are, the easier each turn will be, and the easier that faster skiing. No, that's not true. The stronger you are, the easier each turn will be. The more cardio gains you have, and this is specific to downhill skiing, the less tired you will be at the end of a day skiing, the more volume skiing you'll be able to handle. Cardio and strength are super important, but if someone was only going to do one for ski season, I would probably say do strength. Getting 150 minutes of cardio per week is so important for you in terms of health and longevity. You are going to feel better as a person and a skier and everything else if you get that 150 minutes a week. And then of course, for the strength side of things, working on your big muscle groups a couple times a week is going to have an incredible protective effect. For women, it's going to help you feel better hormonally as you age. For women and men, it's going to keep you skiing longer and it's going to keep you independent longer. So both of those are incredibly important, and I can't pick which one I like more. When it comes to skiing, if you could only do one, then I would say work on that strength, because there's a certain amount of strength that you need to complete a high performance turn that it's like a bare minimum threshold level. If you can't hold a carve, you can't hold a carve. So that's my opinion. Might be a hot take, but that is what I think on that one. And our last question of the day, how do you help your legs stand up to multiple days of skiing in a row? This is huge, especially for folks that, like, maybe you got invited to a hut trip for the first time. I've had clients that they've gotten invited to a hut trip and they're like, can I handle 5 days of skiing in a row? Or maybe you're just planning a ski vacation this winter. You're going to take some time and go to a ski hill, and you want the ability to enjoy it multiple days in a row. When it comes to this, you need to first figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are when it comes to skiing. So I'm going to point back to that quiz that I talked about at the beginning of today. You should check it out. It's free. It literally is just going to take 5 minutes, and it's going to show you your skiing superpower and your skiing kryptonite when it comes to physicality, and it's going to help you figure out how or what's holding you back, what's maybe making you sore at the end of the day skiing. We will point to 2 things here if I'm talking about general recommendations. The first is to pay attention to your recovery at the end of the day. So you need to remember that soreness from a muscle isn't often just because you used it. It's often because it's a novel stimulus. It's a new feeling and your body is putting on the brakes. So if we can practice repetitive power movements in the preseason, we're less likely to feel sore after our first day skiing. And we are less likely to be too sore to then go out skiing the next day. The second thing is to make sure that the way you are skiing is not in a way that's going to make you incredibly sore. So you don't want to be relying on just your quads. And if that's interesting to you, check out video in the description below about leaning back and why your quads are sore when you're skiing. And bonus points, if you do mobility, I have a mobility video I can link to as well at the end of your day skiing. Getting a little bit of blood flow, using your muscles unweighted through their entire range of motion is going to mean you're less sore going forward. And if all of this sounds cool to you and you want to be ready for the best ski season ever, if you want the first day of the year to feel like you're already in ski shape, then you need to check out our 8-week pre-ski program. We are actually running it. This is really cool. We're running it in 2 cohorts this year, so we have 2 different starting dates. And we're gonna link to all the information below, but we're not releasing that for a couple weeks. So if you wanna know about that, do the ski quiz, get on the mailing list, and you'll be the first to know about that program, which I'm so excited for. Anyways, have a wilder week. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And of course, if you have any other ski questions, talk to me on Instagram or leave a comment below. Have a wilder week, you guys.